Sydney.
Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast. Here are tonight's headlines.
Flash flooding caused by the remnants of Hurricane Ida killed at least 44 people in 4 northeastern U.S. states overnight into Thursday, including several who perished in basements during the historic weather event. Officials blamed on climate change.
Some Filipinos in New York and surrounding areas were among those affected by the massive flash floods brought by Hurricane Ida's remnants, the Philippine Consulate General in New York said.
New Zealand police shot dead an Islamic State-inspired attacker after he injured 6 people in a supermarket knife rampage, despite round-the-clock surveillance by undercover officers.
Not of faith.
Happy Filipino Night!
And Filipino heritage and culture was celebrated last August 31st at the Dodger Stadium.
First, in the U.S., flash flooding caused by the remnants of Hurricane Ida killed at least 44 people in 4 northeastern U.S. states overnight into Thursday, including several who perished in basements during the historic weather event. Officials blamed on climate change. Take a look.
Today, because of a devastating storm that shocked the people of this city, and even the morning after, we're still uncovering the true depth of the loss. Because of climate change, unfortunately, this is something we're going to have to deal with great regularity, and we want to assure all New Yorkers that we're prepared for this. And
all of us, but what we've got to recognize is the suddenness, the brutality of storms now. It is different. A record set 2 weeks ago, another record set now, rainfall like we haven't seen ever before. This is the biggest wake-up call we could possibly get.
My car's crushed. I have no, it's totaled. It's a 10-ton tree just fell on my car.
Just heard the winds pick up and looked out the window and we saw when this fell last night, and then woke up this morning with like horns honking and people yelling.
We thought Louisiana was far away, but then obviously the storm picked up energy from the Atlantic, and wow, this was just unbelievable.
Remnants from Hurricane Ida brought historic and catastrophic floodings across the Northeast. Record rainfall, which prompted an unprecedented flash flood emergency warning for New York City, turned streets into rivers and shut down subway services as water cascaded down platforms onto tracks. 13 died in New York City, including 11 who could not escape their basements, according to officials. The victims range from the ages of 2 to 86. 3 also died in the New York suburb of Westchester, while another 4 died in Montgomery County, outside Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, according to a local official. Ida blazed a trail of destruction north after slamming into Louisiana over the weekend, bringing severe floodings and tornadoes. The National Weather Service issued its first ever emergency flash flood warning for New York City, urging residents to move to higher ground. The National Weather Service recorded 3.15 inches of rain in Central Park in just an hour, beating a record set just last month during Storm Henri. It is rare for such storms to strike America's northeastern seaboard and comes as the surface layer of oceans warms due to climate change.
In Annapolis, 30 miles or 50 kilometers from the U.S. Capitol, a tornado ripped up trees and toppled electricity poles. Take a look. Annapolis Mayor Gavin Buckley and Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman declared states of emergency Thursday as residents and business owners started to assess the extent of their property damage. Pittman said the declaration was the first step toward applying for state aid. The tornado reached winds of up to 125 miles per hour and traveled more than 11 miles, according to the National Weather Service. The Weather Service said the tornado was rated as Category EF2 on the enhanced Fujita scale, which ranges from 0 to 5. The agency said the tornado had a maximum width of 200 yards and lasted from 2 p.m. to 2:23 p.m. Thousands of county residents were without power, and many in the Parole area were without gas Wednesday night into Thursday morning. That number slowly dwindled as Baltimore Gas Electric crews worked through the night fixing outages, according to the Capital Gazette.
Meanwhile, residents in Malika Hill in New Jersey came together to help after a tornado from Hurricane Ida's remnants touched down. Take a look.
Response has been amazing by all the local folks. They've done a great job. Two parts of it have been amazing. One, to see how their emergency management people are doing such a good job, their police, their governing body. And then the second part of it that is pretty amazing as well is all the families in the area who care so much, that brought food, that brought clothes, that brought anything they thought they might need.
So, I mean, our workload over the next couple of days, right now we're in the phase of getting utilities repaired off. Houses that are being condemned, the gas companies out here, they are capping the lines. At this point, Legacy Electric, their response has been fabulous. I think we're down to about 1,400 homes that are out of power. That's down from 2,900 homes last night.
I know as a community here, the amount of donations and support that has already poured in the last 24 hours is just amazing.
In a preliminary rating by the National Weather Service, Thursday night, the tornado was determined to be an EF3 with maximum winds of 150 miles per hour. The National Weather Service said the tornado was determined to be an EF3 with maximum winds of 150 miles per hour. According to an ABC report, the tornado was on the ground for 12.6 miles before it lifted near Deptford. 2 injuries were reported. Many houses were unrecognizable and looked like a bomb went off inside. Families say all they could do is seek shelter in their basements and hope for the best.
Meanwhile, the remnants of Hurricane Ida has taken 23 lives across New Jersey. Governor Phil Murphy said that most of the 23 deaths across the state were people stuck in cars as flood waters rose. Take a look.
So to state the obvious, that yesterday Tropical Storm Ida swept across the state with high winds and in some cases, as I saw down south, with some cases tornadoes. It had heavy rains and deadly flooding. I'm saddened to report that as of right now, at least 23 New Jerseyans have lost their life to this storm. The majority of these deaths were individuals who got caught in their vehicles by flooding and were overtaken by the water.
The intense rain, at times reaching rates of more than 3 inches per hour, flooded out roads and highways. And just as towns are grappling with the scope of the damage, more flooding is predicted to crest over the next 12 to 24 hours. Hundreds of rush hour motorists became stranded in their cars in the rapidly rising flash flood waters. Police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel were overwhelmed with calls for help. Hurricanes are common in the southern United States, but scientists have warned of a rise in storm activity as the ocean surface warms due to climate change, posing an increasing threat to the world's coastal communities.
Meanwhile, some Filipinos in New York and surrounding areas were among those affected by the massive flash floods brought by Hurricane Ida's remnants, according to the Philippine Consulate General in New York today. The Philippine Consulate General in New York is deeply saddened that a number of kababayans were affected by last night's flash floods in New York and surrounding areas. We have been informed that some members of the Filipino community suffered damage to their homes and vehicles, it said in a statement. Though some Filipinos suffered damage to homes and vehicles, there were no casualties reported. Consul General Elmer Cato said the consulate staff had been reaching out to leaders of the Filipino community to determine the impact of the flooding on Filipinos in the affected areas and advise those who may need assistance to reach out. At least 44 people were reported killed as Ida's remnants unleashed massive flooding and heavy rains across the northeastern United States.
Staying in the U.S., where President Joe Biden says he will press further action on his infrastructure plan once Congress is back in session in the face of extreme weather events such as Hurricane Ida and the fires in the western U.S. that are occurring with increasing frequency. Take a look.
When Congress returns this month, I'm going to press further action on my Build Back Better plan. That's going to make historic investments in electrical infrastructure, modernizing our roads, bridges, our water systems, sewer and drainage systems, electric grids and transmission lines, and make them more resilient to these superstorms and wildfires and floods that are going to happen with increasing frequency and ferocity. Country, the past few days of Hurricane Ida and the wildfires in the West and the unprecedented flash floods in New York and New Jersey is yet another reminder that these extreme storms and the climate crisis are here. We need to be much better prepared. We need to act.
Meanwhile, calmer winds in Northern California are giving firefighters their needed break as they need to step up their efforts against the sprawling Calder fire. Take a look.
For now, we can breathe a sigh of relief, take a breath, and relax for a few minutes and just know that for now, the houses are safe down here.
Now, the flames are creeping closer to South Lake Tahoe, the main resort town in the popular holiday area that straddles the California and Nevada border. It's only 25% contained, but fire officials say they hope to gain more ground as weather conditions improve. The western United States is burning at an alarming rate, with over 2,700 square miles blackened by late August in California alone, more than double the area consumed by this time in an average year. The fires are being driven by a historic drought that has left swathes of the region parched as man-made climate change takes a visible and painful toll, and people living in the area are forced to flee.
In other news, China has challenged the United States to fix relations with Beijing to make progress on climate change. The foreign ministry said Thursday as Washington's climate envoy visits to press the world's top polluter to slash emissions. Take a look.
当然，我们也显示了我们的诚意哦，因为你知道，按照我们现在的政策的规定，所有跟你见过面的人都需要隔离14天。那么，但是我们愿意付出这个牺牲，来同美方就我们共同关心的事项开展我们的对话，探讨我们的合作。因为中美作为两个大国。 合作，这是我们唯一的正确的选择，也是国际社会的殷切的期待。
Given the science and what's happening, that we're all going to be dealing with this certainly for the rest of our lives, and I think a challenge is as big as any that we face on a global basis. And China, my friend, plays a super critical role.
U.S. climate envoy John Kerry warned Thursday that Beijing's coal building spree could undo global capacity to meet environmental targets. Despite pledges to peak coal consumption before 2030, China brought 38.4 gigawatts of new coal-fired power into operation last year, more than 3 times what was brought online globally. Now, China has challenged the United States to fix relations with Beijing in order to make progress on climate change. But Kerry urged the Chinese government not to let environmental cooperation be affected by tensions between the world's two biggest polluters, calling it a global challenge.
Meanwhile, Spanish authorities accelerated their cleanup efforts after flash flooding provoked by intense rain washed away cars, filled homes with mud, and knocked out power in the east of the country. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said emergency services were working tirelessly to protect people and restore normality to places affected by flooding as soon as possible. One of the worst hit areas was Alcanar, a town 200 kilometers south of Barcelona, where huge torrents of fast-moving water surged through the streets, sweeping away everything in its path. The storm knocked out power to 10,000 homes in the northeastern region of Catalonia, but as of Thursday, only 200 residences lack electricity, according to a spokesman for the power firm Endesa. Heavy rain also fell in the Madrid region, forcing the closure on Wednesday of several metro stations due to flooding in the northern Navarra region. Emergency services rescued several people from cars that were caught in rising waters, but no fatalities were reported. Torrential rains are becoming ever more frequent in Spain, with flooding causing 7 deaths in the southeast in September 2019, while another storm left 13 dead in the Balearic island of Mallorca a year earlier.
Thousands of climate change demonstrators thronged central London on Monday as environmental activist group Extinction Rebellion held a new round of protests, promising 2 weeks of disruption. We have Janelle Kasuga of our ABC UK Bureau with that story. Janelle, please tell us more.
Thank you, CJ. And yes, police in London on Monday warned activists from Extinction Rebellion that they faced arrest after the environmental pressure group blockaded Tower Bridge, one of the capital's most recognizable landmarks to traffic. Let's listen in.
Don't doubt it. He probably isn't here. Said a few days ago, making a difference. I end with the words, extinction.
The Metropolitan Police said demonstrators who are halfway through 2 weeks of promised protest in the British capital have used a van and a caravan to obstruct the world-famous crossing. Met Police tweeted, "Officers were on scene almost immediately. We are working with City Police to get traffic moving again." It added, referring to the neighbouring City of London Police Department, responsible for the heart of the financial district. The police have also warned those protesting that this obstruction of roads is unreasonable and they must disperse. If they do not move, they may be arrested. Extinction Rebellion kicked off a new round of disruptive protests last Monday, with thousands of climate change activists since thronging central London to demonstrate against perceived global inaction on the issue. On Friday, hundreds protested in the City of London financial hub against the funding of fossil fuel industries by lenders in the so-called Square Mile, as part of the ongoing action dubbed the Impossible Rebellion. Police have arrested dozens over the past week, including 34 during rallies on Sunday. Young people have voiced their opinion about the Extinction Rebellion cause. For instance, students have said they worry about the state of our society by the time they hit old age. It's frightening. More young adults have hoped there would be a stoppage to fossil fuel production and car production. Since holding its first protests in London in 2018, activists have repeatedly brought parts of the capital and other cities to a standstill with carnival-like demonstrations. They've also targeted individual businesses and premises in London for direct action, including newspaper offices and emergency companies' headquarters. The rallies have spread to many countries around the world. Back to you, CJ.
Thank you so much, Janelle, for your report. Please do take care over there and tell us more if there are any more new developments happening there in your side of the world.
Thank you for having me, reporting from London, United Kingdom. I'm Janelle Kasuga. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Janelle. And we'll be back right after this short break.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Medyo madami na ding pag-angat ng negosyo ang ating nasaksihan, hinangaan at natutunan.
Patikim si Idol!
Patikim natin yan.
Ang sarap!
Tara, kain tayo! Ikaw ang ating bida. Baka nalilimutan na natin ang pinaka-basic sa lahat, ang yelo at ang iba pang negosyo sa tubig.
Kasi imagine mo, tubig lang yung puhunan mo.
Hindi na manlalamig ang inyong bulsa. Tiyak na mauubos ang tinda, aapaw ang sisidlan ng kita. San ka pa?
Ang tubig kasi, napakasagana niya sa atin eh. Kaya napakagandang negosyo.
Yellow! Mga kaagapay, ayos pa tayo dyan! Ako po, si Robin Padilla, at ito po ang ulat. Kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Ngayong linggo na itala ang pinakamalaking bilang ng COVID-19 cases sa Pilipinas. As a result, MECQ in Metro Manila and other provinces has been extended, forcing small business owners to cope with another week of heightened restrictions. Maraming mga negosyo ang tuluyan ng nagsara at ang iba naman ay nag-iisip ng iba pang pamamaraan para makabawi. Sa episode na ito, sasagutin natin ang tanong na, how can my business survive this pandemic? We'll find out as we discuss our topic, creating your business model map, with our correspondent Randy Bernardino and the chairman and the chief innovation strategist of Mansmith and Fielders Inc., Mr. Josiah Go.
Don't wait for everything to normalize. No? Start a new business that represent essential, that would carry essential product.
All these in this episode of Open for Business.
Welcome back. New Zealand police on Friday shot dead an Islamic State-inspired attacker after he injured 6 people in a supermarket knife rampage despite round-the-clock surveillance by undercover officers. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said she was gutted. The man, a Sri Lankan national, had managed to carry out his hateful assault even though he was on a terror watch list. Take a look.
This afternoon at approximately 2:40 p.m, a violent extremist undertook a terrorist attack on innocent New Zealanders in the Newland Countdown in Auckland. The attack began at 2:40 p.m. and was undertaken by an individual who was a known threat to New Zealand. The individual was under constant monitoring, and it was the police surveillance team and special tactics group who were part of that monitoring and surveillance that shot and killed him within, I'm told, the space of roughly 60 seconds of the attack starting. What happened today was despicable, it was hateful, it was wrong. It was carried out by an individual, not a faith, not a culture, not an ethnicity, but an individual person who was gripped by ideology that is not supported here by anyone or any community.
The St. John Ambulance Service said 6 people were taken to hospital, 3 in critical condition. Details of the attack were scarce, with some witnesses saying the man was wielding a knife and others describing hearing gunshots. Auckland is currently in COVID-19 lockdown as it battles to contain an outbreak of the highly transmissible Delta variant. New Zealand's worst terror attack was the Christchurch mosque shootings in March 2019, when a white supremacist gunman murdered 51 Muslim worshippers and severely wounded another 40.
In other news, the Taliban were on Friday close to forming a government with the hardliners under intense international scrutiny over their vow to rule Afghanistan with greater tolerance, especially on women's rights. Now, the announcement of a new administration, earlier expected to be made after Friday afternoon prayers, would now not happen until Saturday at the earliest, according to a Taliban spokesman. Now, the Islamists face the enormous challenge of shifting gears from insurgent group to governing power days after the United States fully withdrew its troops and ended 2 decades of war. While the West has adopted a wait-and-see approach to the Taliban, there were some signs of engagement with the new leaders gathering pace. A Taliban spokesman tweeted early Friday that China's foreign ministry had promised to keep its embassy in Afghanistan open and to beef up relations and humanitarian assistance. The United Nations said it had restarted humanitarian flights to parts of the country, linking the Pakistani capital Islamabad with Mazar-e-Sharif in northern Afghanistan and Kandahar in the south. The country's flag carrier, Ariana Afghan Airlines, also said it would resume domestic flights later Friday, starting with a plane from Mazar-e-Sharif to Kabul after getting a green light from the Taliban and aviation authorities. Western Union and MoneyGram said they were resuming money transfers, which many Afghans rely on from relatives abroad to survive. And Qatar said it was working to reopen the airport in Kabul, a lifeline for aid. Now, the new rulers have pledged to be more accommodating than during their first stint in power from 1996 to 2001, which also came after years of conflict. First, the Soviet invasion of 1979, and then a bloody civil war.
In other news, Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga said he will not run in his ruling party's upcoming leadership vote, throwing open the race for the next premier of the world's third largest economy. The shock decision after just a year in office comes with Suga's approval ratings at an all-time low over his government's pandemic response. And it suggests a possible return to political turbulence for Japan, which regularly cycled through prime ministers before the lengthy tenure of Suga's predecessor, Shinzo Abe. He said, in 1 year since I became prime minister, I have poured all of my strength into dealing with the various problems facing the country, with anti-coronavirus measures at the forefront, Suga told reporters. And then he said he realized that running for election and handling virus policies would require enormous energy. He said, I came to the realization that I cannot do both. I had to choose one of them. Liberal Democratic Party, or LDP Secretary General Toshimiro Nikai, said he was surprised by Suga's decision not to stand in the September 29 leadership race. Suga had dropped no hints of his plans to leave office before contesting his first general election, having replaced Abe, who resigned for health reasons. He had been widely expected to seek re-election as LDP leaders, with most speculation surrounding only how soon after that he would call a general election. The election must be called by late October and held by the following month. The LDP is expected to remain in power, though some members feared losing seats due to Suga's unpopularity.
In other news, the European Union and UK-based drugs giant AstraZeneca settled their dispute over a shortfall in coronavirus vaccine supplies, agreeing an extended delivery schedule. Now, the European Commission went to court after the firm failed to deliver all of a promised 300 million doses by June 2021, but AstraZeneca will now have until the end of March next year to make up the number. But the firm argued that its contract with the bloc only obliged it to make best efforts to meet its delivery target, and that production bottlenecks in its European plants had been unavoidable. In an interim ruling pending the final settlement of the case, the Brussels court imposed a new delivery schedule on AstraZeneca. The agreement ends the legal battle, and AstraZeneca will not face any fines or penalty payments unless it falls short of its new target dates. But if it fails, it will have to pay member states a rebate on the costs of the vaccine, equivalent to 10% for 1 month of delay, 25% for 2 months, or 40% for 3 months of delay or more. The agreement also assumes that the European Medicines Agency will approve 2 new European manufacturing sites for the AstraZeneca vaccine before the end of October. Because the AstraZeneca vaccine is cheaper and can be stored at much higher temperatures than the Pfizer-BioNTech and other rivals, it has been sought after in poorer and developing countries.
And a new coronavirus variant known as Mu, identified first in Colombia in January, is now the country's predominant strain and behind its deadliest pandemic wave yet, according to a health official. The variant was responsible for Colombia's deadly third infection wave between April and June, health official Marcela Mercado told a local radio station. During this period, she said, with about 700 deaths per day, nearly 2/3 of tests from people who died came back positive for the Mu variant. She added that it is already in more than 43 countries and has shown high contagiousness. On Tuesday, the World Health Organization declared Mu, scientific name B.1.621, a variant of interest. It said the variant has mutations that indicate a risk of resistance to vaccines, and further studies were needed to better understand it.
Unvaccinated NBA players will be kept apart from vaccinated teammates and will be required to undergo more stringent testing as part of virus protocols proposed for the upcoming season, that according to ESPN in a report. The network reported that under a memo detailing the new protocols already sent to teams, unvaccinated players will be given lockers as far as possible from vaccinated players. Unvaccinated individuals would also be required to sit in different areas from vaccinated teammates when dining or traveling on planes and buses, the report said. More frequent testing for unvaccinated players is also detailed in the proposals. Unvaccinated players will need to be tested on game days and practice days and could even be required to be tested twice on game days. However, vaccinated players will only need to be tested if they show symptoms of COVID-19 or come into contact with someone infected with the virus. Unvaccinated players who come into close contact with a positive case will have to submit to a mandatory 7-day quarantine. Vaccinated players will not be required to face quarantine provided they don't or do not test positive for the virus. Now, ESPN said the protocols had not yet been made final, and talks between the league and the National Basketball Players Association were ongoing.
Meanwhile, England's under-21 match against Romania in Bucharest is postponed after 2 positive cases among the team's players and support staff. Lee Carsley was set to take charge of his first game after he was appointed as England under-21 boss in July. But Carsley's maiden match will now be Tuesday's Euro 2023 qualifier against Kosovo in Milton Keynes after England decided not to travel to Romania. The individuals concerned were immediately isolated from the rest of the group, with the squad still based at St. George's Park. We'll be back with more news right after this break.
Protect yourself and loved ones. Use Protect Plus Gold, a broad-spectrum disinfectant that kills 500 strains of bacteria, fungi, and viruses such as coronavirus and other disease-causing microorganisms. Also potent against viruses in pets. It kills 99.9% of disease-causing germs and works in 10 minutes. Dissolve 1 teaspoon in 1 liter of water. Apply on areas for disinfection or use it for misting. Protect Plus Gold.
Mahal, bakit ka bumitaw? Akala ko ay hawak pa ng iyong mga kamay.
Hello, ako po si Charles Josh at may tuto pa rin akong isang letter sender request ngayong linggo, September 5 sa Letters and Music, 1 to 2 p.m. Dito lamang yan sa Net 25. See ya!
Totoo ang kasabihang may pera sa basura, lalo na kung magagawa ang iba't ibang bagay mula sa mga recyclable material na inaakala ng iba na itatapon na. May ilang barangay sa bansa ang nagre-recycle ng basura at makikita ang iba't ibang bagay na gawa sa basura. Dekorasyon sa bahay. Sa mga proyektong ito, nagiging malinis ang kapaligiran bukod sa mayroon pang pagkakakitaan.
Ryanair CEO Michael O'Leary announced that the airline will operate 14 new routes from London airports in a bid to boost its winter traffic. Kathleen Eusebio has more.
Irish low-cost carrier Ryanair returned to profit in July thanks to a strong summer holiday season, but expects a difficult winter, boss Michael O'Leary told AFP on Tuesday. O'Leary said after holding a major press conference in London, they went back to profit in July. They'll make a profit again in August because the recovery has been very strong in the peak summer period. But this winter will be difficult. The Dublin-based carrier is trying to restore its pre-pandemic traffic, but he added that that can only be achieved by lowering prices. Let's take a look.
Winter. We're opening new routes. We announced 14 new routes today from London. We have new bases, including a new base in Toulouse this winter. So I think we will be recovering traffic, but at lower prices. I don't think we'll make money this winter, but we won't lose a lot of money either. A lot of the legacy airlines, Air France, Lufthansa, Alitalia, depend on connecting Asian, American passengers connecting on their short-haul services. So their recovery has been slower. I think Ryanair's recovery, also the other low-fare airlines will recover faster, quicker, because we are dependent on intra-European air travel. I think the great success of the COVID period has been the European COVID digital cert. That's been a great success. It's given people confidence to go back flying in June, July and August. Those who are vaccinated have no restrictions, and that's been at least we've been able to recover during the summer peak season. I think in Europe you're going to see, clearly we've seen failures. So you've seen the loss of Germanwings, Thomas Cook, Flybe, Level have all disappeared. Many of the airlines, Air France, KLM, Lufthansa, have received huge quantities of state aid. I think that will mean that their recovery will be slower. They've had to get rid of some of their fleet. Alitalia's has gotten rid of 30% of its aircraft. TAP in Portugal, 25% of their aircraft. That means there's going to be a lot less capacity in Europe in the next 2 or 3 years. And therefore it's important that airlines like Ryanair invest in new aircraft, quieter aircraft, more fuel-efficient aircraft, and keep growing quickly, because otherwise prices will rise. We want to keep prices down because the fastest way to recover aviation and tourism and jobs in Europe is to keep prices low.
The airline is expecting traffic in August and September to be around 80% of pre-pandemic levels, he said, adding he hoped that would rise to 90% in November and December. O'Leary told the press conference Ryanair is committed to rebuilding London's tourism industry, jobs and connectivity as we grow across Europe and recover air travel to pre-COVID levels. He also called on the government to scrap tests for fully vaccinated arrivals. While he is optimistic about the recovery for short-haul budget airlines, O'Leary warned that legacy carriers could face more difficulties with the number of long-haul visitors to Europe remaining low. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Kathleen Eusebio. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Kathleen. Now, in other news, German luxury car maker Porsche will open its first factory outside Europe next year in Malaysia, officials said, seeking to meet strong demand in the Southeast Asian country. Now, the manufacturing site in the northern state of Kedah will carry out final assembly of specific models for the local market, according to the company and Malaysian officials. Malaysian Trade Minister Azmin Ali said the move was a strategic decision by Porsche, signifying its commitment to build a long-term presence in Southeast Asia. Currently, Malaysians wanting to buy a Porsche have to pay high tariffs for imported vehicles. Other foreign car makers have long operated assembly plants in the country to serve the local market. Malaysia has a fast-growing middle class and has enjoyed robust growth rates in recent years, although a serious coronavirus outbreak has hit the economy hard.
In other news, Filipino heritage and culture was celebrated last August 31st at the Dodger Stadium. And Eva Basalyaje will tell us all about it. Eva.
Happy Filipino Night! Mabuhay! Let's go, Dodgers! Yeah! Happy Filipino Night! Proud to be Pinoy! Mabuhay! Happy Filipino Night! Go Dodgers! Happy Filipino Night! Go Dodgers!
A decades-long tradition, Filipino Heritage Nights at Dodger Stadium makes its return after a year off due to the pandemic.
Because it was Filipino Heritage Night, both the U.S. and Philippine national anthems were performed.
Honestly, amazing to be singing for a live audience, especially because of the pandemic. Like, we're all getting back to what is normal, and I'm just soaking in all of these moments because I don't know when the next time is going to be that I'm going to be able to sing live, but it's just an immense amount of gratitude today. I think I'm just really excited to be representing my culture and my heritage, and to have it be at the Dodger Stadium, which is just epic and it's mainstream, and to feel seen is just a win today.
There are no jokes for the pandemic. The pandemic itself has taught us how to not joke. I used to be a positive person, but now I can't even say that because you're supposed to be negative. It's so confusing, but you know, I know all the people watching. It's such a great joy to, whether you're watching on TV or you're watching here at the stadium, to kind of forget that for a while. That's what sports are for, to get it off your mind, to know that there'll be a better tomorrow. We'll all hit a home run one day. And the pandemic right now seems to be in our way. So until the pandemic steps away from the plate, we got to keep swinging. All I can say is I am a proud Filipino American, and it's a great day to be both a Filipino and an American and a Dodgers fan.
With an impressive throwing arm, it was comedian Joe Coy who was back on the mound for the ceremonial first pitch.
97 miles per hour is what they clocked me at, so you're gonna love it. They're putting me in the game probably to close it out, so we'll see. Oh man, that's the best part of this whole thing, man, is just laughing. I'm glad that we're back out on tour and just seeing people come out and laugh, and it's been a while, so it was very emotional when I got back on tour, so I'm excited. Beautiful, the energy's hot. I mean, we got so many beautiful people here. Martin Rivera's here, so I can't wait, man. I love it. I love the fact that we're celebrating this moment with, of course, you know, my people, celebrating the culture and our people. It's great. It's a great night, and I'm excited. I'm getting all butterflied right now.
We're happy to be here tonight to celebrate Filipino heritage. We're just happy to gather again and have a little bit of normalcy.
So walking in, I wasn't expecting to see as many people represent our culture, but to my surprise, there's so many Filipinos here. I was so surprised and shocked to see that many being able to represent our culture.
I've never seen so many Filipinos early to an event. And yeah, I probably got here about 45 minutes and there were so many people here already. So an awkward thing to Filipino time. Pretty encouraging, I guess. It's crazy being back at Dodger Stadium because, like I said, it was so filled over here and a lot of people. It was good to see everyone vibing with each other, it being like a normal event, not anything, not so much social distancing be on everyone's mind. It was people having fun at a game. It was amazing to see.
We're finally here. I mean, yeah, we're having fun right now.
It's finally be out. It's really nice. We're here to represent. Yep.
Represent
our team. 2020 champions.
We're all excited. There's a lot of Filipino. Everybody's enjoying the game, and so are we. Well, we'd like to say mabuhay to all the Filipino people here in America. Enjoy, stay safe, be well.
For Dodgers fans, the anticipation of facing off against the NL East top team culminated in a 3-game sweep of the series, as LA completely routed Atlanta and are now headed to San Francisco to battle for the NL West top spot against the Giants. No doubt true blue fans, like the ones at Filipino Heritage Night, will be rooting for the home LA team, especially since playoffs are only a month away.
Los Angeles is one of the most diverse cities in the country. Contributing to this diversity are Filipino communities embedded throughout the Southland, which continually help shape LA's unique way of life. In Los Angeles, California, Eva Basayahe, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
And finally, in our news, ABBA historian and biographer Carl Magnus Palm calls the Swedish superstar's announcement of a new album insane, as he explains the significance of the new album during an interview in Stockholm. ABBA on Thursday announced that they are releasing a new album as well as putting on a show featuring digital avatars. Take a look.
The thing that was announced was that not only have ABBA recorded 2 new songs, they've actually recorded a complete album, which will be their first complete studio album in 40 years, which is insane. It's 39 years since they released new music. And then it's also about these digital avatars that's going to be performing ABBA songs in a live concert situation. We never thought that ABBA would have any kind of reunion, that they would ever go into the studio to record new music. I mean, people have asked me over the years, do you think they're ever gonna get back together? And I said, forget about that, that's never gonna happen. The reason they've done this now is that someone came to them with this idea of doing this digital avatar live concert experience type thingy, whatever it is. And they were excited by this because they were told, you know, this is going to be better than anything you've seen before. It's not going to be holograms. It's going to be cutting edge technology and really, really good. And they thought, oh wow, that sounds great.
There you go.
Very interesting. I wonder how the new generation of music lovers will take their new take on music.
Digital
of ABBA.
avatars, yeah. But it's an all-time song. I think they'll appreciate it. I mean, they.
It's just interesting though how if they're gonna change it a bit or if they will stick to the music
tweak it a bit,
ABBA
yeah.
that we all know.
Yes.
Very interesting. Something to look forward to. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. It's the weekend, but the news continues tomorrow. I'm CJ Hero.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow at 11. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
This program is supported by Protect Plus Gold, a broad-spectrum disinfectant, kills 99.9% of disease-causing germs and works in 10 minutes.
Muling nagpaalala ang pamahalaan sa mga senior citizens at mga may medical conditions na dublehin ang pag-iingat, kaya paalala ng Malacanang na manatili sa bahay para makaiwas sa virus.
Hirap talaga. Walang mapagkunan ng trabaho. Wala eh. Hindi ba? Bawal eh.
Kung hindi lang sana pandemic, di may mapaglalabahan. May matatrabaho, ganun. Kailangan po taga-trabaho kasi hindi ka na makakain kung wala kang trabaho po eh. Pilitin mo lang tanggapin dahil wala eh.
Maganda yung konsepto na maganda magkaroon ng pamilya. Siyempre, magkaroon ka ng family bonding. Pero pag wala kang pamilya, katulad nito, malungkot. Wala kaming anak ni Mrs. eh.
Sabi ko sana, yun na lang ang hinahanap ko para mabuo ba. Kasi mayroon ka ng asawa mabait, wala ka naman anak. O, di ba?
Kaso ng COVID-19 sa Zambales sumabot na sa 900 at 90. Checkpoint sa Zambales, pinaigting.
Samantala, ilang ilog sa Zambales umapaw na dahil sa nagpapatuloy na pagulan.
Yun ang kinakatakot ko, yung bahay namin. Baka pag lumakas ang ulan, ay bagyo, ay hangin, lilipad yung bubong. Yun ang kinakatakot ko. Kaya bangin ang lalim, oh.
Doon ako nalaglag, oh. Doon sa puno ng mangga.
Oo, yun lang ko. Sabi ko, inihiling ko sa ama na sana huwag niya muna sana kunin. Mahirap lang ang buhay. Gusto pa siya makasama.
Malaking bagay ito. Malaking bagay tulong sa buhay. Wala pa akong, hindi pa ako umiyak eh. Ngayon pa lang ako napapaiyak eh. Dahil sa kaligayahan. Tears of joy nga eh.
Medyo madami na ding pag-angat ng negosyo ang ating nasaksihan, hinangaan at natutunan.
Patikim si Idol!
Patikim na natin yan.
Ang sarap!
Tara, kain tayo! Ikaw ang ating bida. Baka nalilimutan na natin ang pinaka-basic sa lahat. Ang yelo at ang iba pang negosyo sa tubig.
Kasi imagine mo, tubig lang yung puhunan mo.
Hindi na manlalamig ang inyong bulsa. Tiyak na mauubos ang tinda, aapaw ang sisidlan ng kita. San ka pa?
Ang tubig kasi, napakasagana niya sa atin eh. Kaya napakagandang negosyo.
Yellow! Mga kaagapay, ayos pa tayo dyan! Ako po, si Robin Padilla, at ito po ang ulad. Kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
susunod na programa ay rated PG. Ito ay nangangailangan ng patnubay at gabay ng magulang para sa mga batang manonood.